Num num. Num num. Birdie num num.
When I have understanding of computers, I shall be the supreme being. God isn't interested in technology. He knows nothing of the potential of the microchip or the silicon revolution. Look how he spends his time. 43 species of parrots. Nipples for men.
Don't do that, Jesus Christ! You're gonna get me killed!
Out of here!
Oh, Billy.
Welcome, everybody, to AB Live. Yes, men still have nipples and birdie num-num done good cheap. Very excited today because we are going, well, first let me introduce myself. My name is Miguel Connor. I am your pompatus of Gnosis. And heresy shouldn't be this much fun. It just is. It just is. And we are going to have a lot of fun today because we are going to be covering one of a movie that I've seen so many times has really affected me. Obviously, I love all of Stanley Kubrick's content. He's one of the greatest, perhaps the greatest director of all times. And my God, an individual so full of occult and esoteric messages. And as I've said before, Dr. Strangelove is suddenly very relevant today as we are closer than ever to the brink of some sort of nuclear interaction between power players of this world. Hell is closed and all the devils are here, as Shakespeare said. But we want to do something about it, and the way is inside, and the way is to unveil all the secrets and realities behind what's going on today. So with us, we have the pleasure of being joined by David Block. David, thank you much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Miguel.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background before we get started on a spanning presentation on The Shining.
Yes. I was waking up 18, 19 years ago through EFK. Quite common, I think. I understood quite soon that I had to transform myself in order to cope with the darkness I was confronted with. So I started to study esoteric matters to find something to hold on to or believe in. And I find myself through alchemy in the beginning, and then I started to study Kabbalah, a left-hand path. So I am a practicing esoteric person today. So I'm not talking about I'm talking about people who misuse our knowledge to do wicked things or bad things with it, because you can do good things and you can do bad things with it. And I think Kubrick tried to say that what he tried to say with his movies. Even in Space Odyssey 2001, you have this double side of the esoteric knowledge. You can transform, or you can perish with it, or go under with it, or yeah. So I am an esoteric person. So I'm not beating down on any practitioner. I am saying that some use our knowledge for bad things, and I think that exactly what Stanley Kubrick tried to say with his movies.
Everything casts a shadow, as they say. Everything can be weaponized. And yeah, that's been the debate. Was Kubrick part of the deep state or the cabal, whatever you want to call it, or was he actually trying to give out? And we can go, yeah, that's like, that could be a whole other show. But this show is on The Shining. David will be giving a presentation. We will likely have to break it into part 1 or part 2 because he leaves no stone unturned, and this is going to be the most exhaustive exploration on The Shining you are ever going to have. But first, we've also got the Moondog Vance. Vance, how are you doing? You got some red rum with you?
Oh, yeah. I got a whole bottle of it over here. I think it's red. Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, Shining is one of our family favorites, too. My son in particular loves it, so.
Awesome.
We'll see. Maybe he likes the little girls, you know. They're cute for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, well, good. I think your son will get a lot out of this. So awesome. And for the audience there, I see you already going into the chats. I don't know if we will actually have time to field any questions. If you do a super chat, we'll have to, but keep in mind we might not be able to get into these questions because again, David is going to take us on an incredible journey through the film The Shining. So other than that, not much housekeeping.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, I think this is the most most extensive analysis of the movie so far, and I will present a lot of new material for you. I promise you that. Just let me pick up some pace. Part 1 will be an introduction, and I promise you to go into the detail in part 2 and 3. So bear with me.
Yes, we'll get there. It's not uncommon. I've watched podcasts where you have to break the show up but yeah, this is thorough, not even close. And I've watched documentaries, I've read books. This is the one, you truth seekers down here at the virtual Alexandria. So shall we get started, David?
Yeah.
All right. Let's pull up the thing. Okay. Everybody can see it down there in the chat room in the Canoma. All right. The Shining, an esoteric analysis dedicated to Stanley Kubrick by David Block. So
good.
All right.
Yeah. I break down the analysis in 3 main parts, and it's because they are quite long in and of themselves. I hope we will manage to get through part 1 and 2. And maybe we do part 3 later on in the second part. In part 1, I introduce my work and also go into a little bit of the detail. But in part 2, it will take up pace, and I will start to show you details. And part 3, even more details. So as I said, bear with me, and I promise you to show what The Shining is all about. All right.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Let's do it.
So this is part 1 of 3. I hope we get through part 1 and 2 today.
All right.
Yes. So this is the introduction of my work. And I will tell you a little bit where it started. It started on a university for real. It took up pace on a university in Sweden. We can go to the next slide. I had already started to work with The Shining or try to decode it before, but I had a master course in media in Sweden, and we were supposed to do an installment, an interactive installment, and present the installment as it was a real case for the class and try to make it as real as possible. And I chose to do a Kubrick installment on the Kubrick exhibition. And my idea was that you should play Danny on his bike and go around in the hotel and try to decode the Shining, the meaning behind The Shining. Because I think that the best way to make people understand is to get them involved. So I had many different ideas why I wanted to do it. I didn't just want to do it for the master degree. I wanted to do it for Kubrick's sake, and also because I think Kubrick had something to say, who is important. So I had many different layers of ideas behind this project, not just the master course. And of course, this is not an academic work per se, because it had become much more than that. So this is not the academic work, but that's where they started there for real, you can say. Yeah. Next slide.
Awesome. Yeah, for those who will be listening in audio after this, we are describing everything so you won't be missing too much. So yeah, again, next slide, interactive game with Danny as the main character.
Yeah. So my idea was to have this graphic and all the feeling of the hotel, and you were going very fast with the bicycle and Danny and pick up clues and piece them together, and also at the same time interact with different stuff on the material stuff in the exhibition. So you get these keys and you get this puzzle in material form in the installment as well. When as well, you played the game and you interacted with the objects for real on the spot on the exhibition.
Awesome. I'm surprised somebody hasn't created one already, like a real video game, but
yeah,
they should.
Yeah. Exactly. It would be a great game, I think.
It would be awesome.
Yes.
Pretty scary. Now in the
Yeah.
next slide, we've got a movie that I love. Yeah, Room 237.
Yeah, and I want to mention this documentary as well. They did a documentary named Room 237, and I think all of you know about it already, different ideas what the movie was about. And I have watched it as well, and I liked it, but I felt something was off. I didn't buy into good information, but I didn't think they had put it together. I felt something was off. I felt they touched on something, but they didn't really crack the code. And it made me more curious, of course. That's how I am as a person. If I see something and I don't agree, I don't become angry or stop. I just get more enthusiastic and I want to know more. Why don't I agree? What's off? Yeah. And
That's by Rodney Asher. He's been a past guest, and but he does good documentaries.
Yeah, the movie is good, and it's a very good introduction to The Shining. So watch it if you haven't seen it.
All right.
Yeah. So we come to the number 42 in part 2 here, and I will explain the number 42. I think many maybe know about the number 42 from the movie A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and of course the book. But what does it mean? People doesn't know why 42, and it's like the audience in the movie. 42, what the fuck?
The answer to the universe.
Yeah.
We're just asking the wrong question.
Exactly. Now we explain the number 42 in esoteric lore here. Of course, they had more meaning than one, but for this movie, and the number 42 is very important. And you have this quote from a lady. I don't remember where I find it, but the business with the number 42, maybe it has nothing to do with the Holocaust, but then why the shirt? Why that movie on the TV? And 2 times 3 times 7 does equal 42. Yeah, and the number 42 is very important in the movie The Shining. And I will explain it now. The movie The Shining had premiere in USA May 23rd, 1980. That's very peculiar because it's exactly 42 years from now on, from 1980. It's just a couple of days. So maybe we can do part 3 on May the 23rd and finish the analysis exactly 42 years later. I just want to mention it.
All right.
Yeah. So in the documentary Room 237, you have different theories what the movie is about. And I want to mention one of them here. And it's through Jeffrey Cox, a history professor. And he is into this Holocaust and Hitler and all that theory. And the reason why I mention him is he says some good things. And I have it highlighted in red here. I'm not going to go through everything he's writing, but Jeffrey Cox mentioned that the number 42 is on Danny's sweatshirt, and the typewriter is from 1942. And it says, Cox says, Danny had no idea about the word, and now he knows. He's no longer dope about things. Through the movie, Danny transformed into a more enlightened person. And that's a very good analysis of Jeffrey Cox, even though he doesn't understand that the number 42 is about transformation, because Jeffrey Cox is not an esoteric person, so he doesn't connect the number 42, but that's a very true statement. And I like when people do good statements without knowing the esoteric background, because then I can fill in what they say with more proof. And that is what I'm going to do. And he mentioned a very important thing, and it's a color that he associates with ghosts, but also with power and with murder and with death. And he's talking about blue, the color blue. Kubrick uses color a lot. And when Kubrick highlights things in blue, Cox says it's a color that he associates with ghosts, but also with power and with murder and with death. And that's a very important quote from Cox. And I will go mention it again later on, but I just mentioned it now. All right, we go forward.
Yeah, interesting. For the audience, according to Cox, the film is an allegory about coming to terms with Hitler's extermination camps. So,
yeah,
interesting theory.
Yeah, and it is in the movie, but it's not the main theme.
Right.
But he's touching on something.
Yeah, it makes sense. And Danny is sort of the eyes of the world. He sees the horror and everything as he was waking up, as you said. All right, next slide says the typewriter and Leon Vitali.
Yeah, and also one of these details I like. When I see details like this, I get very concentrated. Try to understand why. The typewriter and Leon Vitali. Leon Vitali says that all the typewriter in 1942, for example, belonged to Kubrick himself, and that particular model was once a commonplace as late model iPhones. Kubrick longtime assistant Leon Vitali. And why that's important is that I think what Kubrick tried to say here is that Kubrick's typewriter, Kubrick writes through Jack. And he is writing about number 42. And Danny is number 42. And I'm coming back to that, why, soon.
All right, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah, the famous line there.
Right.
And that's, I will come back to that as well very soon.
All right, next slide.
Yeah. The story is about number 42. And Danny is number 42. And part of him, Jack, because Jack is his father. Danny goes from being a 0 to the number 42 in the movie The Shining. And the transformation goes through Jack. He has to transform to survive Jack in the movie. Jack is 24, and I will come back to that later. Danny is 42. That that is a palindromic number. It's a number that remains the same when its digits are reversed. So all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, equals all play and no work makes Danny a dull boy. Without work, Danny will not become number 42. It takes effort and transform the spirit. It takes effort to transform the spirit. Now we come back to Cox's quote. Danny had no idea about the word, and now he knows. He's no longer dope about things. I will go back to this number 24 and 42 again, more in part The Hotel and Danny, and July the 4th, 1921.
All right.
So now we come to the different themes in the movie, because it's not about one thing, but the movie has one main theme. But you have these side stories. They are all connected. So they are there for a reason. Kubrick didn't do anything without a reason. Nothing is in the movie as a coincidence. It's there for a reason. And the next slide, we have the moon landing the theory about the moon landing. And that's an intriguing idea, but I don't really agree with Widener's statement that Kubrick faked the moon landing. And I think he missed the point a little bit here. Doesn't mean that I don't like Widener, or he has done a lot of good things, and you should listen to Widener. And I have listened to Widener. But just in this case, I think he's off a little bit. I will show you why. But it is there. It is there.
And as you say, the mass murder of the Indians, the Native Americans, it's in the narrative, but it's not the main theme either.
Yeah, it is there, but it's not the main theme. And Kubrick had many different themes in the movie, all connected. Yeah, so the mass murder of Indians is not the main theme. I think we have gone through that. Some connection I have made is the Indians were shamans, for example. They had contacted nature spirits and lived in harmony with Mother Earth. Those responsible for the mass murder lived in cities, the modern society, and had contacted completely different spirits. The common denominator was their interest in the metaphysical and in spirits. So they both practiced esoteric methods and theories, but had very different ideas and contacted different kinds of spirit, nature spirits versus the fallen angels or the watchers.
Mm.
But you have a conflict there.
And that picture of Jack and the cans, what that you circled, what's in the cans?
Yeah, I think he tried to point out the conflict here between those opposing esoteric ideas. And some of it also, if you take the esoteric practicing for the watchers and so on, it's very can be if you use it wrong, you go to transhumanism and technology. And technology is very anti-nature and the natural habitat Indians. Nature-based esoteric practices versus transhumanism technology. So I think he tried to deepen that conflict. Yeah.
Next
the
slide.
Hotel and Danny. Next slide.
Let's get into the Hotel and Danny.
Yeah. Now, many have pointed out that the hotel is illogical. It doesn't, the room doesn't fit. And the hotel is a metaphysical maze. It is as physical as it is mental. So it is not only a material construct, a physical object. It is also a mental construct. So it's also in Danny's head and also Jack's head. But as an esoteric person, what is real? We call the material word asaya, for example, in Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm.
And I use asaya a lot because it distances yourself from this idea that the material world is the real and the metaphysical is unreal. If you use the terms for it, you program your head to think differently. So we are calling this material world asaya, the world of illusion. So the hotel is as physical as it is metaphysical. That's the reason why it's not logical.
All right.
Yeah, so what do we find in this hotel? I will go through some important main scenes in the movie. You have one scene where he and his mother is watching a movie, Summer of 42, and the TV have no cord. And many have pointed out why Summer of 42 and why no cord to the television. And you see this metaphysical, Kubrick are trying to tell you the hotel is not only physical, it's also metaphysical. Something is off here. And why this movie Summer of 42? Now the number 42 comes up again. Why are they watching the Summer of 42? And I want to point out some important things about the movie Summer of 42. Next slide. We have the mother and the child. And in the movie, Wendy seems to love Danny. But she's also very disconnected when they have cognitive dissonance. And her cognitive dissonance is greater than her love for Danny, I would say. Yes, the next slide. In the movie Summer of 42, you have a character named Dorothy. And in the end of the movie, I will read a quote from, not from the movie, but one who writes about the movie. Dorothy has fled the Iceland and in the night, and an envelope is in the front door with Hermie's name on it. Inside is a note from Dorothy. She assures Hermie she will never forget him. Her note closes with the hope that Hermie may be spared the senseless tragedies of life. Now we have the name Dorothy. I think Kubrick wanted us to connect the name Dorothy with the Wizard of Oz. And I can't go into any details, but I will try to explain it as fast as I can. In the movie The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy is the fool. And in Tarot, the fool card has the number 0 and also 22. And it has also number 42 encoded in the fool card. The fool carries a bag behind his behind his shoulder.
Right.
And in that bag, he had all the rest of the major arcana cards with him. Because the major arcana is supposed to transform you into something new. And you have all the cards you need to transform. You carry them with you when you have become the fool. Because when you are the fool, you have started to understand that you have been fooled. Then you can start to unravel and start to understand yourself and the world around you through the major arcana and through the tarot cards. So the fool carries all the card with him or her. The fool have the potentiality to transform because he knows or she knows she is the fool. But before that, you cannot transform.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beginning of it. So you have all the cards you need to become something new. And this is the journey Danny is going through in the movie. And in the movie The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy is going through that. But I'm not going to talk about The Wizard of Oz, but it is difference between the book and the movie. And I have decoded the movie. So if you want me to do it, I can do it some other time, but it is a very interesting movie and a very interesting book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, next slide. So you have Dory the Fool, the Wizard of Oz, and you see her carry her bag and the dog, same as the Fool, the dog and the bag over his shoulder. Yeah, next slide. So the story is about number 42, Jack and Danny. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Danny is 42. Danny is 42, the fool. And you can see he has the number 42 on his shirt. And you can see the number also on the typewriter. Jack is typing on. And you can see Doopy in the door from Disney's Seven Dwarfs. And he's standing in a bathroom. And someone has pointed out that Doopy is disappearing from the door later on in the movie. That's not a coincidence because Danny starts to transform to go from being the dupe or the zero, the fool, to become something new because he has to. And it is through the obstacles or the problems we have or our downfalls or and failures that make us transform. That we need this this trial to become something new. Yeah, next slide. So Danny the Fool equals 42. In the tarot, the major arcana, you have the card 13, 14, and 15. It is the death card, the art card, and the devil card. And if you add them together, you get 42. It doesn't mean that he is only those cards. He's all the major arcana, but those 3 cards is the most important cards. You have to die. Your old self has to die. And through art and craft making, you have to transform and become something new. And then you have to defeat the devil within and without. In this case. And the devil is in yourself. The dark side of yourself. You have to transform. But in this movie, you have Jack also as the devil. So he has to defeat the devil within himself and also without. But when we are using esoteric method, we are mostly talking about the devil inside us, the ego. We have to transform our ego to something new. So Danny's old self has to die in order to create something new, the death card. The card 14, an art. Danny have to create a new self with art, craft making, transformation with the spirit. And the devil card, Danny have to defeat the devil within and without, and that's Jack, his own father, in this case. And I have had a lecture about this tarot card and the secret behind the tarot card. I cannot go into that now, but I can explain more in detail if anyone wants to about the tarot and why 13, 14, 15 ends up in one row. There are a method to that, where you place the card in a certain way. But this is the main card Danny have to transform himself through or work his way through. And you probably know in Freemason, you have these death rituals, you have the skulls and skull and bones, you have the skull.
Right.
Many of them go through a ritual where you play your own death. And that's the death card in the tarot. Your old self has to die in order for something new to come to surface. So this is nothing new in esoteric method or theory. Yeah, next slide then. So you have this room 237, and it has more than one meaning. You have, of course, 2 plus 3 plus 7 equals 12. And 12 is a very important number. You have the zodiac. But 2 times 3 times 7 equals 42. And we already explained that the 42 is Danny. So this is a fool's journey. When he enter room 237, he start his fool's journey, or the fool's journey. It is when Danny start his journey to become number 42.
Fascinating. All right. Very fascinating. All right.
And we have the maze. And many speculate about this maze. And in the movie, Kubrick, in his narrative, explained that it's an Indian burial ground. But it's also a mental maze, because the hotel is as mental as it is physical. And I think Kubrick tried to say many things about this. One thing is, you can't tell people the truth. I think many have tried to tell people the truth. You can only show them the maze. And that was one of my main goals with the interactive game, to allow the player to play it and try to solve it themselves. And I think that was one of Kubrick's main goals with his movie. You cannot tell straight up to people. You have to engage them and make them curious about the narrative of the movie, and then they try to solve it themselves. Then you get the viewer engaged into solve the narrative, and that's the best we can do as a filmmakers, or if you write books. And I think that was one main reason. But also, it's very important to mention, in the movie, they are telling us that it's an Indian burial ground. And or talked about ghosts and the Professor Cox.
For the audience, there's a picture of Jack standing over the labyrinth, like some demiurge. All right, next slide.
Yeah.
The gold room.
And then we have the gold room, and the gold room is very important. The gold room is a very important narrative, and in the movie, gold is associated with the sun in esoteric lore. So gold is associated with the sun. So the gold room is also the sun room. And the main, the most important thing here is to understand it's the sun room. And I will come to that soon. So you have the moon room and you have the sun room. And in the gold room or the sun room goes the elite from hell, the shadow side of humanity. More on July the 4th, 1921. I will come back to this gold room. It's very, very important in the movie. And if you miss it, and I will tell you what the date is all about. What he means with the sun room. Mm-hmm. And the elite in the gold or sun room.
In here. Yes.
And now we come to a very important detail. People
Descent
have
into
out.
hell in the future. Okay, this should be right.
Yeah. Descent into hell in the future. And we come to Jung, Carl Gustav Jung. And Carl Gustav Jung was a very important person for Kubrick. His first movie was named Shadow of Fear. And he was very fascinating with Carl Gustav Jung. And Carl Gustav Jung is, of course, very famous for his archetypes. And the archetypes, they are underlying base forms or the archetype as such from which emerge images and motifs such as the mother, the child, the trickster, and the flood, among others. And we have, of course, the shadow is a very, very famous saying of Jung, the shadow self, the anima, the animus, and the self. These are a result of collective, shared ancestral memories that may persist in art, literature, and religion, but aren't obvious to the eye. These recurring themes help us understand the Jungian archetypes. We have stories we are retelling through history about heroes and evil, and it seems to be very stuck in the mentality of the human race. They always come back to these stories for a reason, according to Jung. And it's important to mention here that the mother, the child, and the trickster and the flood is among others is among these archetypes. And all of these are in the movie, The Shining. So you can see Kubrick's influence of Jung had a huge impact on Kubrick. And already, it's very important to mention, already in his first movie, The Shadow of Fear. And the reason why that's important is to show that Kubrick didn't let go of Jung. It was something he was very interested in. And Carl Gustav Jung was interested in esoteric lore, like alchemy, the Gnostic, the Nag Hammadiya library. And I think Kubrick became interested in esoteric matters through Jung. That's the reason why I think it's important to mention that he's already, as his first movie, he became interested in Jung and I think esoteric matters, practices, and esoteric theories. So I think he was very well versed in esoteric literature and theory and practices. And I see it in many of his movies, not only The Shining. You have it in Space Odyssey 2001, for example. So it's no coincidence. That's what I try to say. He knew a lot about esoteric practices. Yeah. Jung described the animus as the unconscious masculine side of a woman and the anima as the unconscious feminine side of a man, each transcending the personal psyche. He believed they are the abstract symbol sets that formulate the archetype of the self. So we have this unconscious side of ourselves and the shadow side in our psyche we are not conscious about. It's quite much Freud in this as well, and Jung studied under Freud, so it's no coincidence. Yeah, so we have, next slide. So we have 3 important archetypes for Jung, and we find them also in the movie. You have the mother, the child, the flood. And of course, the mother, the child is no... Many movies have a mother and a child in it, but in this case, you also have the flood. So you have 3 parts.
Not many movies have an elevator full of blood.
Exactly. And I will point to more details so I can strengthen my theory here.
Right.
Yeah, so you have the first movie of Kubrick, Shadow of Fear, and it's a lot about the river. And you have water. And water is a very important element in esoteric practices and theory. Water is also a symbol of the unconscious and the metaphysical. And this is a point many people are missing. In the Old Testament, for example, they think Noah traveled for water. No, he traveled for metaphysical space. You will not find the ark. There are no ark. But it's hard for people to think in metaphysical terms. They have to train themselves and understand the symbols. So the water is a symbol for the unconscious and the metaphysical as well. What is lying beneath the surface, so to speak. And you have the Sigmund Freud idea of the iceberg was under the water and was above the water and all that.
Right.
But this is Kubrick's first movie. So already in a very early age, he was interested in these themes and these theories. And that's very important to mention. As I said, his extensive knowledge in the esoteric lore can be explained through his early interest in Jung. So in the movie Shadow of Fear, you have a couple of soldiers who confront the inner darkness, and one goes mad. And in one scene, you see one of the soldiers going in the river, and it seems totally lost. And they confront his darkness in himself. The movie ain't that good, but you should see it anyway because it start Kubrick's career and his interest, I think, in Jung and esoteric. Yeah, next slide. So now we come into the detail, because as some people have pointed out, on the table in one of the scenes where Jack is talking about the hotel, you see the red book on the table. And you have this room 237. So I was curious because I bought the red book, the big version.
That's a big one.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
So I think what's on the page 237. I had to look into it, and I find a heading on page 237 called "Descent into Hell in the Future." You can look it up yourself. It's on page 237 in the Red Book, Carl Jung's The Red Book. Same number as the room, 237. Yeah, next slide. So under the heading "Descent into Hell in the Future," and I quote, "1,000 serpents crowd around, wailing the sun. Deep night falls. A red stream of blood, thick red blood springs up, surging for a long time, then ebbing. I am seized by fear. What did I see?" So you have here a red stream of blood. Danny, what did I see? You have one clip, one fast clip of Danny when he imagined this. He sees it inside himself, in his inner eye. And he's like scared. What did I see? And you have, of course, room 237 and page 237. And a footnote from Jung. And the footnote is very long, so I try to make it dense or shorten it. But it says, "I was in great confusion as to the meaning of all those things I had seen. The beetle, of course, I knew to be an ancient sun symbol, and the setting sun. The secret murder of the hero I could not understand at all. I could not then realize that it was also archetypal. And this red book is in one scene in The Shining. And Kubrick was famous. He didn't do anything. Everything was there for a purpose. So I think he wants us to think about archetypes, and I think he strengthened it with this page in the book, where you see that the heading is "Descent into Hell in the Future." Yeah, that was part one, and now we will come to the details of this. And I will decode the room 237 for you.
Awesome. Yeah, Vance is he's gonna take us through the labyrinth. I'm gonna step out for just 1 second. Vance,
Yep.
take us through the maze.
All righty, here we go.
So, the Tree of Life and the Moon. Next slide. So you have the Tree of Life in Kabbalah, one of the most important symbols in esoteric lore. But you also have the Tree of Clifford, and the Tree of Clifford is the other side of the Tree of Life. It's the shadow side of the Tree of Life. And it is also called the other side of the Tree of Life, Sitra Ara, the shallow side of the Tree of Life, or the other side of matter. Tree of Knowledge is also one name for it. In the Bible, they mention it as the Tree of Knowledge in Genesis. So this is two trees. So you have the moon room 237, and I agree that it is a connection between the moon and the room. But it's not the physical moon Kubrick are talking about. But it is about 238,000 miles to the moon. And some say during the time Kubrick did the movie The Shining, they thought it was too 237 miles to the moon from the Earth. So I think he wanted to point to the moon, but he didn't want to point to the physical moon as such. Yeah, next slide. So you have the tree of life and the tree of Clifford. And in tree of life, we have something we call Sephiroths. And the Sephiroth number 9 is the moon. You can see it in the picture if you watch the stream. And it is purple, and you have a moon and the number 9 in it. On the other side, on the tree of Clifford, and that's the other side of the Sephiroth 9, you have the Cliffa called on the tree of Clifford. You have Gamaliel, the obscene one. That's the shadow side of the moon, the metaphysical side of the moon. So you have number 9 and equals the moon room. Yesod 9 is the Sephira. On the other side, it is the Cliffa number 9, Gamaliel, the obscene one, the dark side of the moon. So Kubrick wanted to point out that the Sephira number 9, Yesod, is the moon room. That's the moon. Next slide. The hexagram and Saturn. So you have the properties of Saturn, and I think many knows this. But the properties of Saturn in esoteric lore, you have, it stands for matter. Our world of illusions becomes solid matter. Lead, masculine, control, time, scheduler, restrictions, and intellect. That's traits or properties of Saturn. They contribute to the planet Saturn, or the sun Saturn. Some say it's the sun. Next slide. And Saturn is, next slide. Another symbol for Saturn is the hexagon, the six-sided symbol, or hexagram. And you have the carpet where Danny is sitting on a hexagon. And in the carpet, you see the cube of Saturn, the red cube. And that's the symbol of matter. Danny is sitting on the carpet matter. He's sitting on the Saturn's cube. Next slide. So Saturn's cube, the black cube, trapped in matter in time. Danny is playing in matter on the carpet. Yeah, next slide. And I think many knows that Saturn have a hexagon on its pole.
I did not know that.
Okay.
I learned something new, a hexagon.
So you have the hexagon on Saturn. And the hexagon forms a cube if you draw lines from it. So you have the cube of Saturn, the black cube. And you will see it in some main cities around the planet, the black cube. And that it's about the black cube of Saturn and matter, to trap you into matter, to make you ignorant of metaphysical matters, trap you in time.
That's the demiurge's job.
Exactly. There you have him. So in Lurianic Kabbalah and Kabbalah in general, you have Asaya. We call Asaya the word of matter. So everything you can register, all your five senses take in is Asaya, and it creates the illusion of matter. So Asaya is matter, and the force filling Asaya is Malkuth. It's the light, the force, the energy that fills up our world, that creates our illusion of materiality. And that's Sephira number 10. And Malkuth, but the word is Asaya. Word of matter, we call Asaya. Yeah, next slide. So Danny is playing in Asaya, the word of matter, on the carpet, on Saturn's cube, or Saturn hexagon. The pentagram and Venus.
Part 3. Let's get it on. All right.
Yeah. Now we come to the pentagram and Venus. And a pentagram has 5 sides, and a hexagon has 6 sides. And the pentagram is referent to Venus, and the hexagon Saturn, and also matter, because Saturn creates matter. Trap us in time, trap us in the black cube, to restrain us, to hold us back from the metaphysical, from transforming, from go through matter to the metaphysical. So we are trapped in time. Doesn't mean that Saturn is a bad planet. It is here to teach us a lesson and transform us, so we start to transform ourselves. Yeah, next slide. So a ball is coming, and the ball is red. And the ball is not the moon, but Venus. Next slide.
So Danny's playing with his train. The ball comes. He's playing with the ball, and that's Venus. Okay.
Yeah. And he's looking up from his play, this game. Now we have simple numerology and a lot of esoteric methods, and very important part of esoteric lore. And you have the penta and you have the hexagram equals 11. 5 plus 6 equals 11.
Right.
But it's much more than that. Thelema knows that abrahadabra equals 11. And abrahadabra is the magic force, the magic word. And abrahadabra is the key of the rituals, because it expresses the magic formula of uniting various complementary ideas, especially the 5 of the microcosm with the 6 of the macrocosm. Abrahadabra is the glyph of the blending of the 5 and the 6. Abrahadabra is also referred to as the word of double power. More specifically, it represents uniting of the microcosm with the macrocosm, represented by the pentagram and the hexagram, the rose and the cross, the circle and the square, the 5 and the 6, etc. And abrahadabra has 11 letters, and it is the magic force in and of itself. And if you apply gematria on it, it's not really gematria yet, but numerology and the Chaldean gematria or numerology, you got number that it equals 22, and 22 is the path on the tree of life and the tree of Cliffords. It is the connection between the sephiroths or the cliffots. 22 paths on the tree. And you have 22 in the major arcana of the tarot cards. So it's a very important number. 11 is a very important number. Abracadabra is very important in Thelema. And Thelema is an esoteric practice not started by Crowley, but he's one who people are thinking of when we're talking about Thelema. And Otto and yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So this is a very important. So now you have Abracadabra equals 11. 11, that is the magic force. Microcosm with the macrocosm, represented by the pentagram and the hexagram, the rose and the cross, the circle and the square, the 5 and the 6. And Danny has Apollo 11 on his chart. So Danny has unlocked the moon room through the magic force by uniting the 5 and the 6. He's rising up, and this is maybe the most famous scene. I don't know. Maybe the naked lady. I don't know.
Oh my God! I snuck into the movie theater when I was 10 to watch The Shining. That scene just traumatized me even today.
I imagine. So we have the part 4, the travel to the other side.
The other side.
Now we are going to the other side.
All right, let's go to the other side.
Let's go to the other side. You have the tree of life, and you have Sephira number 10. And as I mentioned before, it's Malkuth or Asaya. On the other side of the tree, you have number 10, but Clifford number 10. And it's called Lilith, the queen of the night. And that's the other side of the tree. The other side of the tree of life, the shadow side. And I want to mention Lilith, the queen of the night, the ruling force. Next slide. So Danny is playing on a hexagon, and a ball is coming. Yeah, next slide. And as I mentioned before, it's Venus and a pentagram. And now you have a sigil. A sigil is a symbol, and the symbol for the Cliffa number 10, Lilith. And the sigil looks like a pentagram, upside down pentagram. And you have 3 moons. An upside down triangle. That's the sigil of the Cliffa Lilith. Next slide. So you have the pentagram, 3 moons. The Cliffa is Lilith, and Lilith is the ruling force. Next slide. So you have the magic formula. Danny is going up. He's unlocked the moon room. And now he's going to the other side of the tree. To the cliffotic tree, the shadow side, the Sitra Ara. Through the magic, with the magic force. And with the number 11 on his chart. 5 plus 6 equals 11. And someone might mention why Apollo. Of course, there are reasons there as well. I will come to that later on. But for now, focus on the number 11 and Danny's journey to the other side of the tree, the cliffotic tree, through a path called Tantrifaxate. And I will come to that now. So we know that Danny is on his way to the moon room. To the tree, on the tree of life, you had Sephira number 9 called Yesod. And you have a moon symbol under the number 9 on that Sephira. Sephira Yesod number 9, moon room. On the other side, you have Gamaliel, the obscene one. And that's the other side of the tree of life, the dark tree, the tree of Clifford. Next slide. So Malkut, Sephira number 10, material world, also called kingdom, is the material world, Saturn, corridor. And you have the corridor 2 room 237 is the 32nd path on the tree. And that's the path, that's the corridor Danny is in. And he is traveling to the other side of the tree of life, to the other side, and to the Cliffords, to the dark side of the tree. Yeah, next slide. One more.
One more, okay.
One more. There.
That's it.
Yeah, good. So you have the corridor, and it's the 32nd path, and it's called Tantrifaxate in the left-hand path. The tunnel of Tantrifaxate connects the lower Cliffotic realm, Lilith, with the astral realm of Gamaliel, transmitting the astral energies of the dark moon to Earth, representing the unity of microcosm and macrocosm. When we come to the end, we find Saturn waiting patiently. This is the path that corresponds to the tarot card, the universe. The tunnel is Tantrifaxate, 32nd path, the beginning and the end of the journey. So Danny is traveling or going through Tantrifaxate. And I want to mention one more thing. Number 11 is called the twins in esoteric traditions because the number consists of 2 ones. 1 plus 1 becomes 2. 11 equals 1 plus 1 equals 2. Twins. Abrahadabra. And you have 10 Cliffords on the tree, on the dark side of the tree, on the dark Cliffotic tree, the shadow tree. But you also have one secret Sephira called Dot. And it exists between Thagirion number 6, the sun room, and Tamiel number 1, the last Clifford. So you have 11 Cliffords, 10 plus 1, one secret Clifford, equals 11, abrahadabra. The term Clifford or Clifford is used to represent the manifestation of evil or impure spiritual forces in Jewish mysticism. And they say, of course, if you're a Lurianic Kabbalist, they say don't work with these forces because that's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You should work with the tree of life. Don't think about the other side. Don't work with these forces or don't connect yourself with these forces. So they used to say the tree of life exists. There are 10 Sephiroths on the tree of life, not 11, not 9, but 10. But if you're a left-hand practitioner, that's exactly where you want to go, to work with these forces. That's the purpose with the left-hand path. Yeah. So part 5, Lilith. Short and concise.
Let's get to the femme fatale of the occult.
Yeah. Exactly. So you have Danny, number 11, Abrahadabra, the magic formula. And he is unlocked the moon room, and he's walking through the Tantrifaxate, path 32 on the tree. And Danny is going up against the evil or impure spiritual forces on the other side, the cliphotic forces, the dark forces on the other side. And 5 plus 6, a hexagram, and the pentagram equals 11. And 11 is on Danny's shirt. Next. So Danny enters the moon room, and that's number 9. And he is on the other side of the tree of life, on the cliphotic tree, on the shadow tree. This sphere is ruled by Lilith in her aspect of the harlot or Aishet Senunim. And that's the moon room. And Danny is confronting Lilith. First encounter in ancient Sumerian lore, she is shown naked in her oldest depictions, with prominent breast and unbound hair, symbolizing her untamed sexual forces. In medieval legends, she appears as a serpent in the Garden of Eden, tempting the first human couple to taste the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And the tree of knowledge is the same as a cliphotic tree, or the shadow side of the tree of life. Danny is going up against Lilith, because Lilith is on the other side of the moon, the dark side of the moon, the Clifford 9, the moon room. Next slide. This where, there goes on. And in Jungian psychology, she represents anima, the dark unconscious part of the self. Jung believed they are the abstract symbol sets that formulate the archetype of the self. So Danny is also going up against the shadow side of the human psyche. But I want to mention that in the left-hand path, this forces is more than just the shadow side of humanity. In the left-hand path, these spirits are very real. The next slide. So you have Jack also encounter this room. Jack is also going into this moon room later on in the movie, and he engaged with this lady, Lilith. Next slide. Lilith is a famous character there are hardly any magician that would not have heard of her. She left the Garden of Eden to live in the desert land by the Red Sea, where she mated with Samael. And Samael is a very famous demon or fallen angel. Samael is maybe with Lilith the most famous ones. And I have highlighted the Red Sea and Samael here, of course. Remember the Red Sea. Next slide. So Jack is also Samael and Asmodeus. Both these forces within one person. Samael and Asmodeus is Jack is based on these two demon forces, possessed or manifest them in physical form. Next slide. Often called the mother of demons, queen of vampires, mother of prostitution and fornications. And we are talking about Lilith here, of course. That is attributes given to Lilith, the dark feminine. Yeah, next slide. So I have the prostitution and fornication, and know that Jack and Lilith can very follow each other here.
Yeah, he just walks into the bathroom and starts making out with her. I never understood that as a kid.
It's a very strange scene.
Yeah. Very, very dreamlike.
Yeah, but now it makes sense because
Yes, now it makes perfect sense.
prostitution and fornication is attributed to Lilith. Yeah, next slide. Queen of the night, slayer of children, and enemy of procreation, goddess of the moon and blood-drinking vampire. And I have highlighted slayer of children because we know that Danny is attacked by her.
All right.
Slayer of children, Danny is attacked by Lilith because he confronts her in the moon room. And I will come back to that later on again. There are also legends in which Lilith is believed to be the original moon that radiated with its own force and refused to yield to the sun. So you have here another connection to the moon. That's the reason why I've highlighted it. Because we are in the moon room on the other side, the dark side of the moon. The cliff on number 9, Gamaliel, the obscene ones. And here Danny confronts Lilith in her aspect of the harlot, or Eishet Senunim. Next slide. So Lilith is the original moon, and you have the moon room 237. And I think I have showed beyond any reasonable doubt that it is Lilith in the moon room. And that is the force Danny is up against on the other side of the tree of life. Danny has entered the dark side of the tree, the cliphotic tree. In one of the scenes, we see Jack sleeping, leaning over a table. And we are still in this cliffa number 9, Gamaliel, the obscene ones. And the easiest way to experience the energy of Gamaliel is through dreams, visual and astral journeys. This is an astral sphere existing close to the material plane. During sleep, we leave physical bodies and float onto the astral plane spontaneously. And that is exactly what Jack is doing. So it's not just a dream. Jack is ending up on the other side of the tree of life through a dreaming state. Next. While traveling through the tunnel of Tantrifaxate, number 32, the path between the realm of Lilith and Gamaliel, we often experience vision of a cave with blood-stained walls, blood-red river, or scarlet moon dripping blood. She left the Garden of Eden to live in the desert land by the Red Sea, where she mated with Samael. And we have this famous scene with the with the doors and the blood, the elevator scene.
Right.
So you have the cave as a womb of the lunar goddess. Is also the vessel that carries her sacred fluids. It is the scarlet blood of the moon, the amniotic fluid, and the sexual moisture of the female. So there you have the elevator red river blood gushing out of the opening of the doors. Also a very famous scene in the movie, of course. Many famous scenes in this movie, I think.
Yes, indeed.
Here, we take the next one. Lilith, she rose into the air. This is from the Old Testament, I mentioned. She rose into the air with fury, screaming the secret name of God, and flew away to settle on the shore of the Red Sea, the mythical land of Semergad. In return, the angel left her alone, and she became the queen of Semergad and the mother of all demonic spirits on the earth from that moment until the present day. Room 237, because we have more demonic forces in this hotel, as we know, in the Gold Room or the Sun Room. Yeah, next slide. Lilith and Asmodeus. According to Hebraic lore, Asmodeus is the king of demons, or a being of wrath. He is also said to correspond to lust from the list of the 7 deadly sins. Interesting enough, it is also said that he is now here on earth after being contained to hell for several million years. You have always been the caretaker. In the Zoroastrian Ashema, he is known as a demon of wrath. Asmodeus, as he is today, is both wrath and lust. And I have highlighted you have always been the caretaker, because millions of years is a long time.
Yeah. A bit.
Next slide. So he is also said to correspond to lust from the list of the 7 deadly sins. And you have this famous scene in the movie where a man is with a strange creature or man with a costume. And that corresponds to Asmodeus.
So that the man in the furry, he's a symbol of Asmodeus.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you can say that. Yes, the bestiality and then the wrath.
The wrath.
And there are more things going on, but we leave it for now. Lilith and Asmodeus. Let us begin with the relationship with young Lilith. No age is given to Asmodeus, which is the first mystery we encounter. By having a difference in the ages, we see that the message being conveyed is one of lust knowing no age boundaries. As you can see, psychologically, this opened the door to pedophilia and the other related subjects. Lilith became the lover of Asmodeus in the early Middle Ages, mostly through the Jewish folk tradition. And
she broke up with Samael. She dumped Samael for Asmodeus.
Maybe. I don't want to go too deep into this, but many have pointed out the connection with pedophilia and very dark matters like that. And there are a connection there. But I don't want to go too deep into that.
For another time.
For another time, if you want to. But that's a very dark matter. Yeah, part 6. The eternal dance macabre. Sorry. The eternal dance macabre and the ghosts in the gold room. And this is also a very famous one, of course. And it's in the gold room and in the, the bathroom. And the man is saying, "I'm sorry to differ with you, sir, but you are the caretaker. You have always been the caretaker. I should know, sir. I've always been here." Yeah. So the eternal dance macabre and the ghosts in the gold room. And as I mentioned, he's saying, "I should know, sir. I've always been here in hell." Interesting enough, it is also said that he, Asmodeus, is now here on earth after being contained to hell for several million years. You have always been the caretaker, because millions of years is a very long time. And Jack has two sides, is Samuel and Asmodeus in one person. And that's the first and the second part of the presentation.
Awesome. Shall we take a break and regroup on May 23rd?
Yeah, what do you think, Miguel?
Yeah, I'm fine. If you want, do you think, what are we missing? We got one more part, or how much longer?
One more part.
Let's do it. Let's just do it all at once. Is your voice okay to do this, David?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, if your voice can handle, let's go all the way. You want?
Have
ready,
the
Vance?
audience gone to sleep, or are they with us?
No, this is fascinating. Definitely lively in the chat room.
Yeah, I want to hear the exciting conclusion.
Yeah, the climax. Let's do it.
We haven't even gotten to the maze, right? We didn't talk about the maze.
I'm up for it. Let's do it.
If your voice can
Let's
handle
go to the gold room.
No blood is coming out of our closets.
Have to shut all the doors here. Yeah, the third part then, The Shining. The devil is in the details. It's the name of the chapter. Yeah, Lilith, queen of the night, slayer of children and enemy of procreation, goddess of the moon and blood-drinking vampire. And we know that Danny has been attacked. He's coming at Wendy with his shirt all torn up and with bruise on his neck. But we can do better than that, because she's also known as, next slide, the strangler of children and the source of all evil and pollution in the world. And if you have watched the movie many times, you will know this line in the next slide. Because between 1 hour, 9 minutes and 15 seconds to 1 hour, 9 minutes and 22 minutes in the long version, the American version, there is someone else in the hotel with us, says Wendy. There is a crazy woman in one of the rooms. She tried to strangle Danny. And Lilith is the strangler of children and the source of all evil and pollution in the world. So that's a very, very detailed fact that points to Lilith. Next slide. Now then, about the moon. I will talk a little bit about the moon, because of course there's a reason why Danny has the rocket on the Apollo rocket on the shirt. And some believe that Kubrick was into this faking of the moon landing. I think he knew a lot about it because of his esoteric interest and because his skills as a filmmaker. And maybe he was a consultant to NASA or something. because they wanted to fake a moon landing movie. I don't know how much he was into it. I have no clue. But there are things I want to point out with the moon landing. And that's the fact that there were many esoteric or some esoteric groups involved in the moon landing effort. You have the OTO member, Jack Parson, and he was a rocket engineer and a student of Aleister Crowley. And Aleister Crowley was not really left-hand path. Thelema was their esoteric, and O2 was another strand of it. But it was based on left-hand path. I think it was based on Mithra worship, and more than that, but some of it came from it. And he was also a sexual magic practitioner. And the narrative of the movie is based quite heavily on his teachings. And you have this Parson character who helped NASA to the moon through technology. And I want to point this out. I'm not into the crowd that think Crowley is the devil himself. First off, Crowley didn't help NASA to the moon. It was Jack Parson through technology. Crowley never talked about technology as such, because now we are taking the esoteric practices and add technology to it. And you come to transhumanism and merging man with machine and so on. And Crowley never mentioned that. What I know, I don't know everything, but I never heard him doing it. And I have studied his teaching quite heavily. But Parson did it. And he used technology in his esoteric practices. And we knew also that Freemason was involved in the moon landing. And we also know that some Nazis was involved.
Definitely.
Former Nazis. Werner von Braun. And he was probably involved in an esoteric organization called Svarte Sonne. The Black Sun. So it was an esoteric effort to take us to the moon. And I mentioned I was studying JFK when I wake up from a slumber. I thought, what is this? I watched the movie, Oliver Stone's movie, JFK, of course, and I was like hooked. So it is a connection here. And it is through Crowley's teaching, Jack Parson, and NASA, through transhumanism, technology merging the esoteric practices. And if you come to technology, very advanced technology, technology that can bend the Saya, this material world of ours, to take us to the metaphysical. And UFO technology can do it, create holes in the fabric of a Saya and go through a hole to the other side. And pop up, of course, in a Saya again. And I think that Kubrick knew that NASA's effort didn't cut it. They faked it. They didn't want to share the technology that really took them to the moon with humanity. So they have to fake it. And JFK, he knew they had technology that could take us to the moon. So he dared them when he said, I want to take us to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. He speak to the audience, to the mainstream, and the esoteric technology freaks he knew had this technology. And what he's saying is, I know you have this technology, but I want you to share it with the rest of humanity, not to keep it for yourself. I know you can take us to the moon. And it became an esoteric matter because it's a metaphysical matter to take us to the moon. I don't believe the technology they showed us took us to the moon.
No.
And I think Kubrick wanted to show us it's something off here. It's an esoteric endeavor to take us to the moon. And it's an esoteric elite who hold this technology for themselves. And is connected to esoteric lore and practices. It's the same, two sides of the same coin. If you make esoteric practice into transhumanism and technology that high up or that advanced, that is what I think he wanted to tell us. Yeah, next slide. And you have this character, Jack Parson. They made a TV series about Jack Parson. And this is also a natural link to his A Space Odyssey 2001 movie. And it brings up questions about technology, NASA, transhumanism, and the future, where we are now. With artificial intelligence and technology that can take us very far and even to the metaphysical. And the question what we should do with this technology, how to handle the fact that it's there. And all the problem it can bring. And Parson have a crater on the moon called after him, the Parson crater. The Parson crater. Yeah. Part 3, all road leads to the gold room. And now we will go to the sun room. Because on the tree of life, you have this Sephira number 6 called Tiferet. And Tiferet is the sun. On the other side, you have the Qliphothic tree. It's called Thagirion, and it is also number 6, because this is just the shadow side of the tree of life. So you have the corresponding Qliphots to the Sephira on the other side. So the gold room, the sun room, is Thagirion number 6 on the other side of the tree of life. Next slide. Now we come back to the tarot card again. We have the Fool, 0, and as I told you, the card 13, 14, and 15 equals 42. Death, art, and the devil. And now we are on our path to the gold room. To the gold room, we have 3 paths to the gold room on the Qliphothic tree. And it is through connection 7 to 6. Thagirion is the Qliphot number 6, but we can go from Qliphot number 7, and we have one path number 24, and we come to the gold room. And we have a path from the Sephira, the Qliphot number 9 to 6 as well. Another connection, and that is path 25 on the tree, the dark tree. And then we have the last one, and it is from 8 to 6. And we can see the number 8 is called Samael, and it is path number 26. All those paths lead to the gold room or the sun room. Number 6, Thagirion. 3 paths, 1 connection, Thagirion. Next slide. The first path I want to talk about is the path 24. From number 7, Arab Sarak, to Thagirion, the gold room, the sun room. And this corresponds to card number 13, death. Nientiel. So if you place all the major arcana cards, tarot cards, on the tree of Clifford, you have these tarot cards connect the connections on the tree of Clifford. And also on the tree of life, because it has the same amount of path, of course. And it says about this path, this tunnel corresponds to Scorpio and the planetary influence of Mars, which is also powered up by Baal, the god of war. This path is associated with death, which could represent change and transformation by dissolving things and reintroduce them into a cycle of birth, death, rebirth. Remember, you have always been the caretaker. As well as the scorpion and the beetle, both symbolic of the black sun and connect with the influence of Thagirion, the sun within. Remember Carl Jung and the Red Book 237, page 237, and the footnote? The vision of death encountered that of the dark jester, crowned with a cap and bells, dancing the eternal dance macabre and the crossroads of the worlds, where witches meet and where the dead can be summoned by the necromancer, the gold room. You have always been the caretaker. So that's the first path leading to the sun room, the gold room, number 6 on the Cliffotic tree, Thagirion. And you have this famous scene in the movie where he
1,000 memes have been made over it.
yeah,
And breaking down.
Yeah, breaking down with the axe and
Shelley Duvall's freaking out. Yeah.
Poor lady. And the planetary influence of Mars, which is also powered up by Baal, the god of war. And of course, we will encounter Jack as a god of war. Yeah, then we have the next connection from path from Cliffa number 8 to number 6. Also the gold room, all these 3 paths lead to the gold room or the sun room. And this is correspond with the tarot card 15, the devil. And it goes from 8 to number 6, Thagirion. The tunnel of Anonin connects Samael with the black sun of Thagirion, connecting the astral plane with the solar realm in the heart of the dark tree. This is the path connected with mysteries of sex magic and a woman as a primary initiatrix in the form of the Scarlet Goddess. The devil is a beast, human and god in one, Jack. We meet both the dark god and goddess in the raw aspects, joined in sexual act. Here we meet the Scarlet Goddess Lilith. She is accompanied by a male deity, Baphomet. And we have the devil card, number 15. And I have highlighted Baphomet here, of course, because you all know how this movie ends. Yeah, next slide then. So here I want to point out, of course, the sex magic part. The Scarlet Goddess Lilith. The devil is a beast, human and god in one. Jack, of course. And we meet both this dark god and goddess in the raw aspect, joined in sexual act. She is accompanied by a male deity, Baphomet. And you have the Baphomet symbol, or statue, or demon to the right. Yeah, the next one. And then we come to the last connection to number 6, Thagirion. And that's the art card. And it connect the Cliffa number 9, the moon room, with the sun room, number 6, Thagirion. And the card is 14 art. And the tunnel's name is Salim. The tunnel of Salim connects Gamaliel and the astral plane with Thagirion. It is the path between the moon and the sun. It connects male and female, positive and negative, creation and destruction, matter and antimatter, existence and non-being, the gold room, and represent a chemical principle of solve et coagulate, to solve and combine, Baphomet. I come back to that soon. It resembles cremation grounds or burial place, absent of life or any living being, abandoned and dead, occupied only by empty human shells. Indian burial place, the maze. And of course, the gold room or sun room. Yeah, I take the next slide. I want to highlight here, of course, solve et coagulate, to solve and combine, and with Baphomet. This is very important in the end of the movie. We're going to understand why Jack has the position as the Baphomet in the last photo. And here also I connected to the maze and the Indian burial ground, where ghost room and dead people room in the burial cemetery place. Yeah, next slide then. All road leads to the gold room. You have 13 death, you have 14 art, you have 15 the devil in the major arcana, equals 42. And all those cards, if you place them on the tree of Clifford, leads to the gold room or the sun room. And that's where Danny has to transform through these forces, through these demons and ghosts and shadows. Yeah, next slide then. So you have the gold room equals the sun room, and it is number 6 on the tree of life, but it is Thagirion number 6 on the Cliffotic tree. And now we are talking about the force that fills up that cliffa. Now we are not talking about the path here. We are talking about the cliffa in and of itself, the force that fill up the gold room or the sun room. And it is described as such. The demon god of Thagirion is Belfagor, the lord of the dead. He is also the spirit of wealth and treasures, and the demon of sorrow. Described in old books of magic as one of the 7 princes of hell. He is believed to seduce men with a vision of wealth, licentiousness, or laziness. And in the Christian tradition, he is the demon of sloth, and one of the 7 deadly sins. The deity mentioned in this legends was an ancient god of the sun, sometimes identified with the Mesopotamian sun god Shamash. Sun room, gold room. I want to mention this again then. We see this elite, ghost elite, demons. He is believed to seduce men with the vision of wealth, licentiousness, or laziness, and is the Christian and in the Christian tradition, he is the demon of sloth. Mm-hmm. And now a very important part comes. The initiatory process of Thagirion is also represented by Shiva. The image of the conjuring force of Lilith and Samael, signifying the daimon of the shadow self of the initiate, or they may appear as one being manifested as Baphomet. Lilith and Samael. One being manifested as Baphomet. I hope you was with me there. It was a little hard to pronounce it.
No, we get it.
Good. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
Hard word. All right, next slide.
Oh, look at that post.
Room.
Yeah. For those
Jack
who might be listening, that's
Baphomet.
Jack Nicholson as a young guy, 1921. How the movie ends, and yes, his pose is just like our friend, right?
Yeah, he's posing as Baphomet with one hand down towards the ground and one up towards the air. And I want to highlight this Baphomet, this combination of Lilith and Samael. The combined forces of them becomes Baphomet. And we have also a date, 1921, and I will come to that soon. Okay, part 4, July the 4th, 1921.
All right. Vince, can you take over the slides? I gotta let the cat out. I'll be right back.
Yeah, part 4, shadows in the goal room. So let's go to the sunroom. Next slide, yeah. You have this date on the card, July the 4th, 1921. If you do a very easy numerology, you got 7 plus 4 plus 1 plus 9 plus 2 plus 1 equals 24. And Jack is number 24. And 24 is a palindromic number of 42. So you have 24, 42. And 100% pure gold is 24 karat gold, as it doesn't include any traces of other metals. And 2 plus 4 equals 6. Sephira Tiferet, 6, the sunroom, or Thagirion on the Cliphotic tree. And 24 correspond to the tarot card 13, Death, Nientiel. I show you this free path, all leading to the sunroom or gold room. So Jack is number 24, and Danny is 42. And there are mirror numbers or palindromic numbers. Next slide. On the Baphomet symbol, you have 2 words, one on each arm, sol and coagula. Solve et coagula is a very famous alchemical motto. And remember that Jack has the same posture as Baphomet on this card in the end of the movie. Next slide. Solve et coagula is a maxim or motto of alchemy, which means dissolve and coagulate. It means that something must be broken down before it can be built up. One interpretation of this saying is to dissolve the body and build up the spirit. Danny, it means that something must be broken down before it can be built up. And of course, Danny is the one who has to be broken down. Jack is the force that Danny must overcome in order to transform from a broken body, lead, and into spirit of gold. Jack dies because Danny defeats him. Jack is 24, death. Danny mirrors him and defeats him, life. And he becomes number 42. 24, 42. And 2 plus 4 plus 4 plus 2 equals 12. Room 237, equals 2 plus 3 plus 7, 12. And also room 237 is 2 times 3 times 7 equals 42. So Jack is the mirror, the shadow Danny has to defeat in order to transform into number 42. And it is a mirror number or a palindromic number of 24. So now we come back to the card. I just want to mention it. So there you have the formula, solve et coagula, to break down the body and to transform the spirit to become something new through struggle or the hard work. And in this case, Danny has to defeat Jack. Yeah, the next one. And you see the Baphomet encodes the moon and the sun as well. You see the moon and you see the torch on Baphomet's head, of course, a sun symbol. So you have both the sun and the moon in Baphomet. You have the pentagram in his forehead. You have both the feminine and the masculine attributes. Lilith and Samael in one. And the moon and the sun, Sephira number 6 and 9 equals 15, equals the devil, the card number 15 in the Major Arcana, the devil. The moon and the sun room, Lilith and Jack equals 15, equals 1 plus 5 equals 6. Jack is 24, equals 2 plus 4 equals 6. Danny is 42, 4 plus 2 is 6. They mirror each other. They are, Danny becomes what he is because of Jack, through Jack. Next slide. So Jack is Baphomet and the devil. Jack is defeated by the devil and becomes the devil. Danny defeats the devil, Jack, and transforms to 42. And that's the fool's journey. That's the room 237, and 2 plus 3 plus 7 equals 12. 2 times 3 times 7 equals 42. And 42, a fool's journey. Okay, you're on your own. This is also for, I cannot swear that Kubrick wanted to say this, but I feel that it is important for him, and maybe it is my own thinking as well, but take it for what it is.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. They live in denial. You're on your own. It is the fear that keeps them from living. You are the living. Cognitive dissonance is a cognitive dissonance from life. You are life. Next. To conquer your fear is to take back life. And with the number 11, the magic force, you will rise and others will fall. It will be victims on the floor, and this power will come at you with everything it got. If you want to defeat this power, you have to go back in time, deep into the mental maze of humanity, and understand where it all went wrong. And you will shine, not because you want to, but because you have to. And there are more, but I think I have decoded The Shining, but I can go even deeper into it. There are connection with Mithra esotericism. There are connection with the Wizard of Oz, as I mentioned before. And I have decoded the movie, and I haven't seen it put together. So if you want to, and if Miguel wants to, you can just tell me. I have done it on a lecture here in Sweden.
Let's
There are
do
more
it, yeah,
details.
for the future, for sure.
Yeah, just tell me.
As long as Vance has a pun with Kubrick, I'm game. Let's keep going with the Kubrick vibe.
Kubrick's cube.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
More details in the left-hand path. We can go into more connections. We can talk about MK Ultra in connection with the Clockwork Orange. Connection with 2001: A Space Odyssey, as I mentioned before, with transhumanism technology. Connection with Eyes Wide Shut. And of course, the transhumanistic part of it, the technology and combine the esoteric lore and traditions. And I think we are in that world right now. An esoteric elite will try to domesticate us through technology.
It's so obvious. I still can't believe people are in denial about it, but whatever. I can't.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's the reason why I talk about the cognitive disconnect.
Right.
People seem so much asleep, and I think Kubrick felt the same. You cannot reach them, and but I think we have to. We have to wake up as a race for what's coming. And I think that's the main goal for Kubrick, was to wake up people. That he wanted to take us into this maze. He wanted to shake us. But you cannot tell people up front, you know how it all goes. I don't have to mention it. You have to engage people. You have to make them curious. You can only hope for the best.
Right. Exactly.
I have decoded The Shining, but there are more. And if you're up for it, I can come back 23rd of May, 42 years from The Shining, and I can talk a little bit more about it if you want. And that's the end of the movie, and you see Jack as Baphomet.
Baphomet, yeah.
And you have the date. And of course, it can be more symbol in this photo. I don't know about why this photo could be. Yeah. So I don't know all, of course, but I think I decoded the main part of the narrative, The Shining.
Yeah, that was incredible. Thank you very much. A lot of hard work. And yeah, this is exhaustive. And yeah, I have no problem jumping on the 23rd for another live one. And then in the future, let's, when you have done your research, let's do more Kubrick and, like you said, all these other movies and how they are interrelate from his corpus. Yeah. So I can't get enough. I want to watch The Shining again.
Yeah, exactly.
New eyes.
Good commercial here.
Even though I've already watched it like 20 times, at least in my life. So what do you think, Vince?
Oh, it's fascinating. So many connections. I got a million questions, but we won't have time for them today. Thinking about the Dr. Sleep sequel too. I'm wondering how much. Yeah, do you think they built anything into that? Is any? Did you see any esoteric connections in there?
Yeah, but more a connection to Clockwork Orange, really. Strange enough.
Hmm.
And I can talk about Clockwork Orange for another time.
Yeah.
A Clockwork Orange is very dark. Details. Kubrick had many details people are missing, and some details point to what's happening today. And strange enough, Dr. Sleep have those details in it. They are talking about draining energy and from
Yeah. Plus, there's
children
always going to
and,
be a difference between Kubrick's The Shining and King's The Shining. Two different mythologies almost. And I know in Dr. Sleep, the creator tried to synchronize them, but you can't really. Yeah, they're different mythologies and messages.
Yeah, and Stephen King are interesting.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the Lawnmower Man. A lot of esoteric lore in there as well, but I think Kubrick just used the book as a backdrop for his story and
for his own messages.
For his own messages. And for me, I haven't read the book, but I mean, if you only view The Shining as a movie, it's very good. When you start to understand what Kubrick really tried to tell you, it's amazing work done, and amazing filmmaker, I have to say.
Amen.
Absolute best.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for doing this. Again, I will have an audio version, but it'll be just as good because you do a good job of describing. It's thorough, and we definitely look to some more of this. The audience had some great conversations, had their own insights, and maybe we can get to some questions.
I really hope they have had a good time.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry for the English, but when you don't, I'm not talking so much English now, so you forget the words.
You speak better English than our last two presidents. I'm not worried. You speak better English than Trump or Biden. So he's the leader of America. So you're fine.
That's also always a comfort.
Yeah. Or maybe Americans are just doomed. I don't know, but no, you did a great job, David, and we really appreciate it. So we better wrap it up, and again, we will have replays of this. We'll get together for more of this Kubrick awesomeness. Vince, thanks for keeping us company and being the caretaker. You have always been the caretaker of AB Live.
I'm back here. That's nice. Man in the back room there.
Yeah.
But and if Vince had the questions, we can take them next time.
Yeah. It'll be a good sync. Yeah, we'll get together after this interview and schedule and everything else. So, but David, thank you very much.
I hope the audience liked it.
They enjoyed it, and so will everybody.
Nice. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, David. Have a good weekend, and everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being yourself. And heresy shouldn't be this much fun, and neither should Kubrick. So, take care, everybody, and we shall talk hopefully sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Bye.